Park Island. I think I know many of you with Beacon. And really, I'm just up here to introduce Rick. But before I do, I think everyone has either heard or talks with regularly or knows of Lori Michello. She runs our Fit for Duty and ergonomic programs here at Beacon, and certainly has been on site for all your organizations, job validations or testing, or overseeing the 6 other physical therapists that we're proud to have participate in doing the WorkSaver program. And many of you may know or may not know, but we first started with Rick back in 2009, and we were working with another organization on starting to generate Fit for Duty as it was starting to become a bigger issue and a bigger topic for a lot of our clients. And really it was a no-brainer as soon as we saw and met Rick, understanding his expertise, the formality of the program, the benefits, everything from the reporting that they're able to do, and the oversight of nurse quality control that really made a lot of sense, as well as the affiliate networks that we tap into for our clients. So we've been happy to be doing it for over 6 years. Started that first year in 2010. I think we did like 300 tests that first year.
Yeah.
As clients were coming on, going through the job validation process, the testing protocols, as you all know, takes a bit of time. And last year we did right around 3,000 tests here. So it continues to grow. It started off with a lot of folks that work in remote areas like the North Slope, but now it's really everywhere around town, union, non-union, just different types of organizations that are affected by having employees go out to the workplace that aren't qualified to meet those minimum functional essential needs. And as all of you know, in occupational health, drug and alcohol, we see somewhere around like maybe a 3% failure rate on medical exams, 5% in positive drug tests, which is no different than what you can see nationally. But within the functional testing that we do here, the Fit for Duty testing, I mean, it ranges between 15 and 20% depending upon the types of jobs that are getting tested, the industries that we're testing. And so you can tell that it's just got a huge impact for our clients in terms of what they're able to screen on the front end. And it always amazes me the call that I'll get from time to time, because we're not, we don't have a sales team and everything else. So a lot of our work is organic, it's word of mouth, people go to different organizations, but you always get this call every now and then that says, hey, you gotta tell me, does this company and this company and this company in my industry do this? Because I feel like I'm getting all the people that, probably were rejected somewhere else. It's like the best business that you guys are clients doing this, because the folks that fail do go get work elsewhere. And, it's to their credit, but those organizations then have that compounding effect of having a bunch of applicant pool that might not be able to function and be out there and be safe for themselves, or worse, at times is being unsafe that affects their coworkers. So you guys all probably know Rick. Dr. Bunch is a leading expert in this country, whether he's testifying on behalf of companies as an industry expert, speaking at national association conventions, and certainly as the founder and developer of the WorkSaver system, is certainly here to answer all your questions. But he's going to do a presentation first and then open for Q&A. So without any further ado, Dr. Bunch.
Okay, hi everybody, how you doing? Oh, it's always great to be here during this time of the year. I would assume that if Alaska had this kind of weather all year long, we'd probably be kicking people out.
Rick, have you ever been here any other time of year?
Yeah.
I notice it comes in the summertime quite often.
My first visit here was in October, and I was invited to speak at the Alaska Safety Conference. And I took my wife and said, let's go to Alaska. And I was expecting to come to Anchorage and see nothing but log cabins and snow this high. And then we said, let's go see Mount McKinley. And we drove all the way to Talkeetna. And Talkeetna was closed. They had one sign, it was like a little pizza parlor. That was the only thing open. And but we love, my wife and I love Alaska. We came one time and we took the float plane to Katmai Island. And we see the grizzlies up close, and then of course the guys there, I guess we call them rangers, said, now clap when you walk down the path, because we want to make sure. My wife's a nurse, and she's literal. I mean, she is by the book, And some of y'all may know Ellen Bunch. She was president of my company for over 20 years before. Unfortunately, she got cancer, but she's a cancer survivor, and I made her retire so she could take care of herself and now she's doing volunteer work for cancer. But I was with her and my daughter, we were at Katmai Island, and on the way out from the falls, we came across a mother grizzly laying there on her back with 2 pills on top of her, and they're breathing, and my wife starts clapping. So I said, no, baby, I think this is an exception to the rule. And you know that old joke, I can outrun you. And so, you know, I just met with a lot of interested clients, and from that viewpoint, I was trying to get them oriented, understand the program, when you understand the program. So what I'd like to hit is on some recent law cases and some recent, I go over the key things that from your viewpoint, from your position, I really need to do. Work saver. My background, for those who don't remember, I went a couple of undergraduate years at West Point Military Academy, served in the Reserve and the Army, and then I went to LSU Medical School and I got my degree in physical therapy. Then I went on to get my PhD, my doctorate degree in neurophysiology. Stayed on as a faculty member and taught there for 10 years, and at the end of those 10 years was the ADA, American Disabilities Act, and that was what woke me up about, you know, they used to, in those days, I'm probably going to date myself, they were doing the class 4 back, class 3 back. You're a physician, aren't you? Yeah. And so they made that kind of illegal. You can't do it. You can't string somebody out because they got bone spurs or degenerative change in their spine. So it became an emphasis on, can they meet the essential demands of the job? So I kind of looked at that and I said, this opens up a lot of opportunity from my perspective, that I was doing a lot of functional capacity evaluations. So I've come to you from that viewpoint. The legal compliance, when we're doing the work saver testing, is we emphasize safety, reliability. So if I do the test, or Lori, Michelle does the test, we get the same results. Validity, you can do criterion-based validity, or you can do content validity, and all kind of different kind of validity. I feel that, and I'm writing a book right now called Fitness for Duty, because it's going to be published by international publisher Wiley and Sons, and one of my co-authors is an OSHA attorney, Topper Thompson, and I have an occupational medical doctor, and we're writing all this stuff and looking at it, but we feel that no matter how some of our competitors are trying to justify different kind of validation, the only validation that makes sense is content validity. Okay, because if you realize what are we looking for? What are you doing this testing for? One is to protect 2 entities. Technically, you're protecting the applicant and you're protecting the employer from buying somebody else's medical problems. And so we divide the test into 2 components. A physical examination, head-to-toe physical exam. We do a lot of the special tests for neurological impingements and, you know, Sperling's test in the neck for those who know medical terminology. But special tests are not normally done in a normal, just a quick physical exam. Obviously, we're looking for those things that the applicant's not talking about. They may either know they have it and don't want you to know about it, or they don't know they have it. I've diagnosed several, or identified several, rotator cuff injuries that they really didn't know they had. They just felt like they had a weakness in the shoulder, but they had a partial tear. The other big issue, what I want to talk to you about, is legal compliance. Legal compliance, from my perspective as a tester, and legal compliance, when it gets past the test and the outcome, how do you handle it from that point on? And that's what I want to address. Well, we know the whole thing that triggered us off with ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, 1990, then it became amended in 2008. And this brought emphasis to any company with 15 or more employees. It covered you in the application procedure, it covered you in the hiring, testing, and the discharge, how you handle a person's employment. This is the Title I aspect of ADA. They covered disability, and disability, as you know, is a physical or mental impairment that's going to interfere with one or more life's major functions. Now, with the amended American Disabilities Act, that definition has become more diluted, more spread out, covers almost anything that doesn't get better within about a 6-month period. You know, so now it's covering obesity. There's a link between ADA now and pregnancy, I'm going to talk about. And so we have to look at these things. Now we also have the Genetics Information Non-Discrimination Act, GINA, which has got to protect genetic information. And so all that sounds complicated, and technically it is when you go into all aspects of these rules and regulations. But from the testing viewpoint, I have realized it's not that complicated if you do testing in the right manner, because you can protect yourself against all these things. Remember, an impairment may not translate to a disability. We always use the analogy, if you cut your little finger off, if you're a welder, it's not going to cause any occupational disability whatsoever. But if you're a classical violinist, it's total disability. So it's how the impairment translates into or doesn't translate into disability. So, but as you know, in our protocol, we want to measure all impairments the same way a medical doctor would, using the AMA guidelines. So if you lost 40% of your range of motion in your neck, you're supposed to go to 85 maximum, and you can only get 35, 40 degrees from a no football injury. Again, if you're a welder, it wouldn't be a disability because you could simply rotate your shoulder with your neck and you can do your job fine. But the reason why we want to measure that and record it on the report is because if that person gets hurt later on with your company, you're not responsible for that pre-existing impairment. And we literally have saved companies hundreds of thousands of dollars in identifying pre-existing impairments. Now, so far, WorkSaver has done over 600,000 tests. And knock on whatever I can knock on, we have not had any of our clients, any of our industries sued yet if they followed our process. We've had a couple of clients who got in trouble because they didn't follow our process. And that's why we want to talk about the process a little bit more detail today. A qualified individual with a disability is a person who really meets all criteria for the job. They have the training, the experience, and everything. What they have, the only thing is that they can't do some aspect of the job because of a disability. And those are protected individuals. And the whole thing is looking at the essential functions of the jobs. And that's when, like Lori goes out and does a physical man validation. She is not only just looking at what the person is doing, she's looking at what is essential. What is truly essential? Not some marginal activity that a person may choose to do without any assistance. You know, I have one company that said, well, we need to lift that 120-pound water pump there. I said, by yourself? And he said, yeah, well, that's what they normally do. Well, I can't lift that. It's essential because two people can easily lift it, and it's probably designed for two people to lift because it's got two railings on each side. And so we have to look at what's essential. And I kind of we take a perspective, and Lori takes this perspective. She's going to go on site as if she was hired by EEOC in a lawsuit against you, and make sure that we don't have these vulnerabilities, and make sure that our tests, if anything, if we err in our test design, it's going to be in favor of the employee, because that's what you want. You know, if I'm on the fence about something, I'm going to err the more conservative route. I don't want them to be like Dow Corporation, which we'll talk about in a second, where they made a test that was much more difficult than was required, and it discriminated significantly against female applicants. So you got to be careful how you design tests. So EEOC has three categorizations of reasonable accommodations. We can modify the work environment, we can modify how the work is done, we can also modify and make sure that the disabled employee enjoys the same benefits and privileges of employment as a non-disabled person. But remember this, the employer is not required to eliminate essential job functions or lower production standards in order to accommodate. And that's a key thing. You don't have to lower your standards. You just want to modify to bring that person up so they can stay up with your standards. And we have to look at interactive accommodation review. Now this is so important. When a person fails our examination, there should be somebody in HR or whoever's looking at the resulting exam doing a little investigation on why did this person fail. Because you're going to be notified on the same day of the examination. They failed. They should want, you know, our nurses I've instructed my nurses to call the company whenever we feel an ADA accommodation review is really necessary. And we've forwarded, everybody here should have, your company should have received the accommodation review format that we put together through our legal firm that we retain. And
I
if you
also
didn't get
made
that,
hard copies for everybody
and
today.
and you have hard copy? And I will, if you put your email on the sign-in, I will make sure you get the electronic versions as well. I've made 2 versions of it. The most recent version, I'm not sure if my office got it to everybody yet, but we want to make sure we do it. So the idea is this, you know, it's got to a point where almost everybody who fails a test can fall into a covered category. You almost have to do a combination or 2 for everybody. Because look, women are covered, anybody over age 40 and older by ADEA are covered, and anybody, of course, with any type of medical issue that affects the way they do their job. Because if you say, well, yeah, sprained ankle is not really a covered disability. If that sprained ankle doesn't allow you to do an aspect of your job, and if you don't know how long it's going to last, you're better off doing an accommodation review because it's going to be a temporary problem. Or if it's a medical problem that can be resolved within 6 months, we can say, we're going to put your test on hold, get this resolved by your medical doctor. When it's resolved, come back and apply if the job is open. You're not required to hold the job position open if a person's not qualified and they need to get, and it's a medical condition that can be resolved within a 6-month period. Technically, you don't have to do any accommodation, you can, other than offer them the chance to come back and retest later on. You never want to slam that door shut. You never want to say, never come back, we don't want you. That's discrimination. And that's what's going to hurt you. The employee has a responsibility, technically it's still law, the employee has a responsibility to request an accommodation. However, if you know, I know here in Alaska, they can go to the Human Rights Commission without asking for an accommodation and make a claim that they didn't hire me and because of my age. We had a test in Fairbanks, at our Fairbanks facility, where the man was being tested, he could not squat without falling. And he's going to the North Slope. So he had balance problems, he had issue problems, but he was an older person. And he filed a human rights claim because of his age. They didn't win the case because of why? And here's the basic thing. Because the test was job specific, content valid, and measured what the person had to do in a controlled environment, which is better for that person than the real environment. So if you can't do a job function in an environment like this, how are you going to do it on the North Slope? And that's the key. Now, what that brings to mind the job environment. I remember, Mark may not remember this, but when we first opened this facility to test in it, we had one company that said, we want you during the winter to open up all the doors and make it cold as heck and put everybody's Arctic gear on. And I said, we can do that as long as you test everybody in the same situation all year long. Now, I can't test Mark full Arctic gear climbing a vertical ladder and then test his brother in the summer when it's 67 degrees or 70 degrees in a t-shirt and shorts. It's not equitable. It's not standardizing all the parameters of the testing site. So, yes, it's kind of neat to test people, see how their cardiovascular response would be wearing the Arctic gear. But during the physical assessment, you're looking at the cardiovascular assessment. We're doing step tests and other things to see if there's a dysrhythmia or an abnormal blood pressure response. Hopefully, we're not going to catch everything. And as this doctor can tell you, you're not going to catch everything. But we catch a lot, you know, and that's important. EEOC advises that it's ultimately the employer's decision as to appropriate accommodation. All legal cases that I've been involved with through Topper Thompson, it's been very favorable to the employer if they go through the process that we described and go through all the steps. And if they make a decision they can't accommodate because it's an undue hardship, they're usually supported on that, you know. It does depend on the resources and the size of the company and what are the accommodations. Or they may disagree with you. We think that's not an undue hardship provided. But you don't get penalized the ultimate $500,000 or $250,000 because you wasn't flagrant disregard for the ADA. It was a decision that you went through a proper process and they're not going to hold you liable for that. And I say that, again, not in the wood, because you never know what the EEOC is going to do, but I haven't seen it yet. Undue hardship is an action requiring significant difficulty or expense. Now, I'll give you a case that just happened last year, EEOC versus Cessna. How many people are familiar with that case? Anybody? That was in September 29, 2015. A conditional hire had passed his post-offer medical examination. A standard medical, not a job-specific functional. The physician even said he can go to work without any restrictions, but the guy was scheduled for carpal tunnel surgery. So he informed the company when they gave him the job, I'm having carpal tunnel surgery. It's scheduled. So they withdrew the job offer. And so, what do you think happened?
Working for Cessna or paid
What's
by
that?
He's working for Cessna or paid by them.
Right, exactly. The worker was not tested to determine if he could perform the essential functions of the job. Here we go. This is straight out of the legal briefings. And what ended up happening, EEOC found Cessna in violation of the ADA, and the result was they paid $167,500 in fines and other fees. You can look the case up, and so let's analyze how this would have gone with our examination. Our examination, say the medical doctor did their part, we compliment the medical doctor, we don't replace the medical doctor. And they come over to us. And the medical doctor may say, person's scheduled for carpal tunnel surgery. If the person comes over to Lori, the other Lori, and they do the examination on the wrist, and it's very symptomatic. One of the Lori's think, well, this testing is going to aggravate the condition. What's the bottom line? Do not cause harm. Do not cause immediate harm. So we know what the person's got to do from a functional perspective. They don't need some lifting. So we say, you cannot do this test while you're symptomatic. Get this condition resolved. So go ahead and have your surgery, recover, and come back and reapply. You haven't denied them employment. You haven't withdrawn the job offer. You put them on what we call medical hold. Okay, just come back and do an opening for you. You're in a much better situation with that than if you just say, I'm withdrawing the job offer. Does that make sense to everybody? And you have something job specific to answer. Yeah, I can't have a person who's symptomatic carpal tunnel grasping and pulling and lifting, and just by doing a Phalen's test or a Tinel test, I'm causing all this pain. Now, if they're not symptomatic and they come through this okay, then we would run through the test and we say, they went through the test, all your job specific criteria was okay. Okay, but employer, you can't stop this person from having a surgery on the wrist for something that was diagnosed that's not interfering with their job functions. You're going to pay for it one way or the other. Yeah. Sorry.
I had one question about that scenario. So if we're looking at a scenario where the person's not scheduled for surgery, say they've had surgery and they're maximal medical improvement, maybe their doctor writes, this is the best they are.
Right.
And so I'm in this process where now we've already made, right, it's a post-offer pre-placement assessment situation.
Right.
So we are going to engage in the ADA accommodation process. We have something that functionally says they can't do some of the lifting components of the job, but what we need to also know is what they can do, because we need to
Right.
make a decision about, hey, okay, well, this person's job may require them to, occasionally do some repetitive, but we still need to know, can they climb the stairs?
Right.
Can they climb a ladder? Can they do all of these things? And so I understand, I'm never going to make a lawyer or anyone do anything they feel is unsafe.
Right.
But what can we do in that situation? Because we need to know what they can do. You can
Well,
tell us right away what they shouldn't do,
Right.
but we don't know what they can do. And that's
Well,
what we
as
have to
far
know.
as the test that you want to know what they can do, we can tell you what they can do in the other tests. In other words, we tell our evaluator, don't stop the test completely, do everything else and see if there's any other deficits. So then we can say, yes, they can't lift the 50-pound requirement, but they can climb a vertical ladder.
Or the stairs.
Yeah, and climb the stairs, they can squat, they can kneel, they can reach. And that's important. Sometimes the therapist will make a mistake and just send them away prematurely. And we'll say, you should have went through the entire examination. So we're still doing a little reminding and education in that part. So we might have the employer say, let's send them back, let's find out what they can do. And
We can certainly work around it, because like I said, I would never ask any of the physical therapists to
Right.
go ahead with the test that they did not feel,
right,
from their perspective, was safe or comfortable.
that's good. Yeah, great. Did you have a question?
So, same scenario, what if the candidate then goes to his private doctor and the private doctor says, yes, they can take that test?
Right. And then when they come back, and she comes back usually with a medical release, and again, the ultimate decision on what test they can and cannot do is going to be up to the physical therapist. Because the bottom line is that they're the ones reliable for that. Because the doctor, a medical doctor can say, yes, from my perspective, from a medical perspective, I feel that they can go back to work. But I didn't do a functional capacity evaluation. If while they're doing a functional capacity evaluation, there's a certain test based on their assessment, they feel this is going to cause injury, then they say, we can't perform that aspect of the test. They can do all other components of this, but they can't do that. And so they provide your company information on what they can and cannot do. Does that make? You agree, Lori? And so that's what we're trying to get more real, evolve more into doing all the tests surrounding what they can't do and getting as much information we can about what they can do as opposed to what's just what they can't do. And I'm certainly glad, Doctor, you brought that up. So anyway, that's okay. Age discrimination, anybody 40 years or older, and mostly this is not just a triggers an accommodation review, but what this really has, the impact on testing, is the test designed that it's disparately discriminating against an older person. And so there's certain ways you can design a test that is that's discriminatory because of age. But this all goes back to the PDV, the physical man validation. If we did our jobs right, and you reviewed it and said, yeah, we agree that these are the minimum essential demands to do this job safely, the minimum requirements to do the job safely, then it's not discriminatory against your age, it's not discriminatory against your gender. This is what it is, okay? And we can't take away these essential demands. Remember, you're not responsible for taking away any essential demands or changing standards of productivity to try to make this job even easier. All you got to do is show that you've tested the person on what was truly required. And that's the same thing with the the Title VII of the Civil Service Act and the Civil Service Reform about women. The thing with EEOC versus Dow Corporation. Dow Corporation, before they did fit for duty testing, 47% of the workforce were females that were hired. When they started doing the fit for duty testing, it went down to 15%. They were having them left, I forgot how much weight, I think it was like 30, 35, 40 pounds, over their heads to a certain height. I think it was like 67 inches. Well, especially smaller, shorter females couldn't even reach that high, and they wouldn't even let them stand up on the stool to get there. And a lot of the women couldn't lift that amount of weight fully overhead. So when one of the females who were failed from that test made a complaint to EEOC, they did an investigation, and then the attorney who took the case was smart. He put in a newspaper, any woman who failed this test, come see me. And it was, I think, a class, I don't know if it was a class action or what, but it was a group of women who had been failed, joined together, and the award to these women totaled over $2.2 million. Because they found that the test could not be replicated in the actual work setting. They don't know where this test was designed. It was much harder and non-existent, or certainly not essential. So even though maybe Dow wasn't intentionally trying to not hire women, the test design made it look that way, and that's all that matters. You got to make sure. And that's one of our jobs as WorkSafe, is to make sure that we don't design something to discriminate against any protected class, because we don't want you having to defend that. No, we're not trying not to hire women. We're not trying not to hire older people. But if it smells like you are, if it looks like you are, people are going to say you are. Laura?
You know, one of those things that with the Dow case that the EEOC found, which is also important for this group to know, is that they also found that it, not only was that not essential, that could have easily been modified. So they didn't have to lift to 70 inches, they could have moved the item to something lower.
Right.
So hopefully in your job validations, if there were issues that we thought were a little bit risky, of course that would be something that would be noted,
Right.
just to help you with, from an ergonomic standpoint.
We like to recommend low-cost ergonomic changes that will make the task essential. Like we have one company called Latrim, who was having their employees lift 150-pound pair of stairs that's in a box. Two men would grab it, usually it was mostly men, grab the box at over shoulder level, put it on their shoulders and walk it out of the warehouse about 150 feet. There was no reason to grab it at shoulder level, number one. You could store it at waist level 30 inches above the floor, and there was no reason to carry it. Thing called a cart. So, so they had a cart, scissor lift cart, we could put it right in the right height and eliminate that. We did it all before we started testing for them, just to make sure they understood that. Because if you're going to hold me to the thing, we want them to be able to lift 150 pounds from over shoulder, we're going to eliminate almost 100% of women and over 75% of men. And there are stress. I know some women that are stronger than men that I know. But on average, we have to look at it as a whole. Women are 50% weaker in the upper body and about 80% weaker, 80% as strong as men in the lower body, but women are stronger in the legs. So women are pretty comparable to men on lifting from floor to knuckle, because that's all legs. But when you start lifting to waist level and to shoulder level, where you're using mostly the upper shoulder girdle, that's when you separate the men from the women. And therefore, Lori and I, red flags go up whenever we start seeing heavy lifting at waist level and higher. We got to make sure that's truly essential. And if it's not, we don't use it as essential requirements. Another thing is pregnancy. Pregnancy is not necessarily regarded as a disability, but it can be, depending on if there is side effects like eclampsia and other things that can happen to a woman during pregnancy. And I think, hopefully the doctor will back me up on this, we don't always know the status of how well the fetus is implanted and all these things. I do know this, that if a woman has a miscarriage in the first trimester of pregnancy who just went through a heavy lifting test, they're probably going to sue you. And then we have the second trimester and third, when you start seeing anthropometric changes, and as the abdomen gets larger, the woman is going to have to reach out further and further and further. And that's going to change what we call the horizontal distance from hand placement to the center of the fulcrum, which we call the L5S1 in the lower back, and that's going to translate to higher and higher disc pressures. Coupled on top of that, all the hormonal changes. The hormone relaxin and the things that's going to make the pelvis more flexible, at the same time can make the person more prone to SI joint problems, sacroiliac joint problems, lumbar sacral strains. So we take our position, and this is sometimes argued by people, we take the position is that I will regard that person as temporarily disabled from certain parts of the job, namely heavy lifting, and I will not test a woman in any phase of pregnancy for the reasons that I just described for lifting. We'll do everything else, but we won't do the heavy, stressful thing. I don't want to take a risk that something's going on in that inside. We see we see pregnant women in the third trimester doing heavy lifting in CrossFit. I know all that. But you're not seeing the ones that are having bleeding and everything else and miscarriages from exertions that they shouldn't be doing. So why take the risk? We are only talking technically a 9-month period of temporarily, regarding them as temporarily disabled. The EEOC gave us an out here. You are disabled if you have a disability or you regarded as having a disability. I regard a woman pregnant having a temporary disability from heavy lifting. Now, if you look at the literature on how much a pregnant woman can lift at different phases of with different trimesters, there's variation. Some say no more than 20 pounds. Some say up to 50 pounds. Well, look, and doctor, you know this, the research, you know how research is. one paper tells you aspirin doesn't work, the other paper says, oh, it does work. And we find out it does because it interferes with histamines and all that. Research is crazy. I was a director of research at the LSU Medical School for over 10 years. And an old saying, and I love that saying, research is the tool of liars. Because you can manipulate the data to make it say whatever you want to say to get published. I don't want to be cynical, but when there's only a few papers on pregnancy and lifting, very few relatively, look it up. You're not going to find many. It's certainly not enough research for me to trust that, oh, we got it nailed. We know exactly at the first trimester how much a woman can lift without hurting the fetus, without causing fetal anoxia or placental damage. Why take the risk? So our policy procedures is if a woman is pregnant, we will not put them through the stressful aspects of testing. And we recommend the employer put them on temporary restriction from the same job-related issues until after the pregnancy is over and they've recovered from the pregnancy, and then have them come back to the work saver test for lifting capacity to reinstate them into full duty. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. And I just think it protects the employer, it protects the mom, it protects the fetus. And so, you know, and I had one hospital that we test for, and the nurse that was in charge of this whole program from the employer side, that's discriminatory. You're treating women different that are pregnant. I am not treating women adversely different. I'm protecting the safety. The safety. I'm protecting that. I might be overprotecting, perhaps, in your opinion, but I'm protecting her. I'm not saying, oh, we're not going to hire you. I'm not going to say, oh, we're going to hire you, but we're not going to pay you your full pay, or we're going to put you in a lesser paying job. We're taking you and giving you a modified restriction until after the baby's born. Period.
I was just wondering if it has the rare scenario, or if this would happen, what would be the result of, say, a person was hired with the restrictions, 11 months later, they are retested with the actual test, and then for whatever reason, let's just say weakness,
Right.
or body mechanics, they couldn't meet the lifting, what would happen?
That's a fantastic question. And because technically that person's now been vested, they're employed, they're on the job setting, the employer should then work with that person to say, you really need to increase your strength, go ahead, we're going to keep you on the light duty a little bit longer and everything. But you technically would have the right to discharge them if they cannot meet the essential functions of the job and they no longer have any kind of disability. You did everything you could to do it. Now, I never advocate to an employer to discharge a person who's been working for them. Discharging an applicant, not hiring an applicant, that's a lot easier. But once somebody's been working for you, but you know, you gotta weigh the pros and cons. You know, you just pray they can meet the demands, and most of them can. And usually, if an employer, for women don't usually have women in most jobs lifting anything real heavy. Even for among men, everybody's aiming to 50 pounds or less, and they're lifting because of all the research we know about when you start lifting more than 50 pounds, your disc pressure goes up past 760 psi, and that increases your risk statistically of injury. All right? But not all companies can do that. So you got more of an issue than if she's being hired for a manual labor job where you got 75-pound lifts, 100-pound lifts, and you're going to have to see then, look, we can't do the job. Can we put you in another job that doesn't require that? It's similar, same pay, and work with that. But, yeah.
How are you addressing, because I'm thinking from the employer's perspective, back to like the Johnson & Johnson court ruling. So this is outside of the EEOC. This is a
Right.
court precedence. And basically the precedence was set that the employers, like OSHA says, we are responsible for providing a place of employment free from hazards or recognized hazards for the employee, for the woman.
Yeah, general duty
But
clause.
yeah, but we don't have any kind of authority or responsibility over the fetus because she has complete control over her pregnancy and what she does with that fetus, and that's the way our law is written. So if we were to say, so I understand that, not knowing early on, there's always, a certain number, and depending on what you're reading, it's pretty high of most pregnancies, just normal loss, and we don't know why.
Right.
About estimated between 15 and 30% of pregnancies are lost in the first trimester.
Especially on first pregnancies.
Yeah, so we don't know really why that happened, and so I would worry that if she had clearance from her, but I certainly would require her to go to her OBGYN and discuss whether she has anything that may put her at risk as a high-risk pregnancy. She's got twins, or she's got, many
That
other
would be the
things,
best route to go, because
and
if you
then
had that
if they
information.
say she's good, I could understand not testing her, say after like NIOSH has put out some, just because she anthropomorphically can't perform the safety functions, but when she's in that range before that, if she's cleared by her OB physician, would that be something that would be thought about? Because I can certainly
Yeah.
hear my lawyers going, oh, that's not gonna fly.
Right, exactly, yes. Again, and it's really easy to forget this one aspect. By not testing her in that stressful lift, it's not that we're taking any adverse action against her.
Yeah.
We're not discriminating, we're protecting. We're protecting her. If you don't, just take the fetus out of the equation. We're protecting her from all the changes in her body, and it's going to protect the client, because your exposure to a lawsuit for whatever reason. Remember about problems that happen and children are born. There's no statute of limitations. There's been a lawsuit where a woman sued a company for lip testing, and a child was born with anoxia of the brain through palsy. And she sued the company 20 years later and won. So why go there? That's my point. Now, if we said we're not going to test you, go away, come back after you have the baby, then you got a problem. Or we're going to hire you, but we're going to put you in a lesser paying job. Then, but if you're saying you're going to do the same job minus this part, we're not going to let you lift, push, or pull, or carry anything more than 10, 20 pounds. We can come up with some light weight that everybody feels comfortable with, and we can test them at that light weight if we have to. But anything that's in the, and I would say that 35, 40 pounds, nobody knows that exact number. And the further you are reaching from the body, so that's why we should stay away from any lift testing for most pregnancies. We gotta use the same guidelines. And I'm one of the few companies that I know do that I'm aware of. I just think it makes sense, both physically and for safety. Right, yeah, it's been working so far over the last few years, and we haven't had any problems with it. So again, it comes to the question: how heavy is too heavy during pregnancy? And is an employer going to really apply the NIOSH equation to a mom who's real big versus one that carries a baby a little bit more compact to find out what's the recommended weight of it for this woman? No. So why risk it? That's the question. Because we want to make reasonable accommodations for pregnancy. Pregnancy may be regarded as a temporary disability. That's by EEOC's language. Probably not in the aspect of testing, but from the perspective of what you do when they're employed for you. We can avoid the direct risk of harm to the mother and fetus, avoid stressful death. And EEOC provides guidance that allows accommodating a pregnant employee to include temporarily reassigning an employee to a light-duty position. And we're not dealing with a great population of workers either. It's not that 50% of your work population. It's usually a small number. So it really is not that big of a deal if you do it right. The other information we got to protect is genetic information, and that means anything about family history. The GENA protects individuals from genetic discrimination in health insurance and employment, prohibits acquisition of genetic information from genetic testing. By the way, if I didn't say this before, I'm going to be sending everybody a copy of the PowerPoint if you left your email so you can have it. And GENA Safe Harbor, if you get genetic related information, you find out that the mother has rheumatoid arthritis, just because it was in some doctor's form that was requested by the employer to handle some type of safety issue, or that the person voluntarily has said, oh yeah, my mother has rheumatoid arthritis, or my dad has this, and I have it because of him. That you're protected by the Safe Harbor Act because you didn't specifically ask for that information. But to help you be very defensive against that, and I don't like to put wordy slides up, but this will be when I mail it to you. EEOC recommends that you have the following warning on any form requesting medical information, whether a medical history questionnaire. This warning should be on there. And I'm going to read it real quick. The Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008, GINA, prohibits employers and other entities covered by GINA Title II from requesting or requiring genetic information of an individual or family member of the individual, except as specifically allowed by law. To comply with this law, we are asking that you do not provide any genetic information. We are responding to this request for medical information. Genetic information, as defined by GINA, includes individual family's medical history, the result of the individual or a family member's genetic test, the fact that individual's family members sought or received genetic services, and genetic information of a fetus carried by an individual or an individual's family member, or an embryo lawfully held by an individual or family member receiving assisted reproductive services. So that is your kind of your CYA statement, you know, so that you put that on a medical questionnaire and everything. And of course, what is a genetic test where they do chromosomal DNA, or they do metabolic tests to determine if you've got a recessive gene that's contributed to some type of disease. And they obviously don't want this information because they don't want insurance companies that we're not going to insure you because you have this genetic propensity to have this type of disease. The next field here is obesity. Obesity is now covered by ADA. So how do we handle that in our testing? We don't address obesity. We address function. Can the person do the minimum essential functions of the job? I've had some really heavy people go through my evaluations like a hot knife through butter. And now he's passed away, but I'll tell you a famous story. Paul Prudhomme. Paul Prudhomme had sued Folgers Coffee because they put a man, a heavy fat man, that looked like Paul Prudhomme with the white chef hat and everything. Paul Prudhomme, if you don't know Paul Prudhomme, he's a famous chef where I live in New Orleans, and very, very wealthy. And so he sued Folgers for putting a lookalike like him. So they called me up and said, we want you to do a functional capacity evaluation and show that that Paul Prudhomme cannot do the physical, functional things that guy did in the commercial. And so I said, okay. So Paul Prudhomme comes in, he rides in his little invalid carriage, then he stops it and jumps out, gets up and shakes my hand, and goes through my evaluation like an Olympic medalist. And I said, Paul, this other attorney thinks you're totally disabled. He said, why are you running around in his car? He says, because I'm so heavy, I don't like to, if I walk around a lot, I sweat a lot, I don't want my customers to meet me when I'm all sweaty. So my report went to the attorney's furious with me, and says, I'm not paying for this. I said, okay, well, I'll see if Folgers Coffee, Paul Prudhomme's attorney will pay for it. And so I got to check real quick. Yeah, but that's a true story, by the way. But it comes to function. Now, a lot of times we'll find, because of obesity, they have an abnormal cardiovascular response. The heart rate runs up real high with very little exertion. Remember, we're doing this in a controlled environment. So if they go way above the 85% of their safe maximum heart rate, simply by going up and down the stairs once with no tools on their belt, no PPE, and no 100-degree weather or no minus 30-degree weather, we know they're not going to be safe out there. If they start going up there and their heart rate becomes irregular, if their systolic blood pressure falls instead of goes up during exertion, if their diastolic goes way up, above 20 millimeters per mercury, goes up 40, 50, 60 millimeters after exertion, these are all abnormalities that need to be seen by a medical doctor. So the test is stopped. Because we're not going to proceed